Hello, so we're going to be jumping in on our behavior system again. And this time we're going to be actually looking at our Google form. So this is our starting point for what we're going to be doing. So in this part, this is where we really need to establish how we're going to go about things. Now we can always make changes, we can make adjustments on the go, but this is really setting the pace on how we're going to build off of and how we're going to get our information. So we'll jump into our Google form. And I currently have one built. However, like I said, I'm going to point out some potential things, and I'm going to say always think about your teachers on here, because if you're going to be getting buy-in from them, this has to be a simple process for them. This can't be anything that they're going to really struggle with. This isn't anything that needs to take up very much time. And so with a Google form, we can, as a teacher, fill out these the moment we observe something. So we can do it while it's fresh on our mind, and we can hit on different elements that we have observed. So we can hit on time, location, potential causes, all these things if you really want to get into it. While we're talking about this, I'm going to bring this up frequently. Also think about the counter side to negative behavior. We could do all this with positive behavior. Now, I would recommend having a separate system, but you could actually integrate this all in together and have positive systems as well in place. And what that would look like on Looker Studio side of this is we'll have additional filters that filter out specifically. So I can get more into that detail later. And once again, it sounds worse than it really is. It's actually a really simple process. So here in our Google form, as a teacher wanting to log what I've observed, we have to think about how we're getting this information out. I would like you to have the teacher side of this, and this isn't to be like, well, Miss Taylor gives out this many and Miss Smith gives, this isn't a comparison thing. This is just so communication can come back to where it really needs to. You want to go back to your teachers and ask, hey, I'm seeing a lot of this behavior. I'm not criticizing you. I just want to know what's going on and offer the help that is needed there. Or Miss Allen doesn't put any of this in. We need to find out, well, she's saying she's handling all our behavior, but we're not seeing the information about what she's having to handle. So just conversation pieces is all the teacher side really is there for. So recommend have it to the teachers. This is set up as a drop down. Just to do that, I just add a question and I choose drop down and I put in my teachers. I can show you later on a real quick way of having this done, copy and pasting over from a Google Sheet, or you can hand type these out. Your teachers, I know some school districts that might change a little more frequently, but this doesn't have to be altered that much. Next thing I have on this one is behavior. And once again, this is just drop down. I just have 3. You can have a lot. I will say going into this, you're going to want a lot of conversations about what is horseplay and then what's inappropriate contact and what's disruption in the classroom. Do you want blurting out? Do you want disruption? How detailed do you want to get into it is where you really want to be, because sometimes you'll put something in here and then all of a sudden every teacher is marking every behavior for that. So just be aware and have those conversations. And then when you have this in place, talk to your staff about what these behaviors look like. What should go in as this, and have those conversations more than once, because a teacher might not see that behavior for a long time and then they don't think to put it in as that. So just something to really consider. Description, this is really just to get an idea about what really took place on the admin side of things. This is really good when we're wanting to turn around and report back on a student for some reason. So if you have a IEP meeting coming up and you're wanting to really talk behavior in that IEP meeting, you actually pull a list of what the student's been doing in the class and actually have descriptions about what these things are. So it's not just that the student is getting up, it's the students getting up and running in the classroom and stuff like that. Location is important. You can have a wide variety of this. You can break this into wings. You can have different things. If you want to get into specific classrooms, you could do that, but I think you really get that when you ask like the teacher's name and then you ask classroom. I think you get that narrowed down quite a bit, but you could be, once again, granular on this, and a drop down is a pretty quick way of getting it out there. You could go off of the timestamp and that would be fine, but I do have date and time on here because sometimes it's rough being a teacher and you notice the behavior, but you couldn't get to mark it when you were thinking about it. And sometimes you have to put it in maybe an hour later. And sometimes it's the close of the day and stuff happens and you didn't get to put it in until the next day. Keep that in mind, that having a date and time option on here is really good. And this is where I would also specify when I put in time, have it in increments of either every 30 minutes or 15 minutes so that your staff isn't putting in like 111. We don't need that precise. We want to have an idea about what's taking place in a time frame. So we want to know, oh, this is happening right after sixth grade eats lunch, or this is happening about this time. This is when this occurs. And so that stuff can really help when you get into that. So next I have, and this is kind of unique for a lot of people, I have a multiple choice question about which grade I'm about to put in. Based on that answer, it goes to a specific section for that list of students. I'll show you how I've done that. So first, just multiple choice question, and we put in the names, and then from there, and you do add a break, add a section. This break will represent freshmen, and then I have a break for sophomore, I have a break for juniors, I have a break for seniors. You'll do the same thing if it's kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, so forth. Then put in each of your students. Now back at this question here. If you hit the three dots, you will see an option to say go to section based on an answer. Now I could have a form just for kindergarten, I could have a form just for first grade, and that can work for a lot of your staff. But some of your staff do see multiple grades, and having a one-stop can help them quite a bit. But you could also have a website that has this broken down just as easily. So just things to consider. But if you go this route, you go based on section, and then from there, I just have another little drop-down list that gives me all the things that I just made. So I'll say go to freshman, go to sophomore, go to junior, go to senior, and then we'll go from there. Now, at the end of each of these sections, you want to make sure you change right after the section. Instead of where it normally would say go continue to next, you want it to say submit form. Otherwise, this person will say, I want to turn in a sophomore. It'll jump to sophomore, and then when they hit submit, it'll then go to juniors. So you want to make sure you have that submit form. Now, I've pointed out we could do this for minors and majors, and I could add in a question on here that says, is this a minor? Is this a major? Is this positive behavior? I could have another question on that. And then from there, we do the exact same thing. Now, if I did a positive thing, the behaviors, the drop downs wouldn't apply from there. So I might have another break that then breaks this up into, okay, this is for the negatives, is going to jump to here. Positive is going to give me a whole different list. I do think it's probably better to have your positive system be separated. I think it'll just make filtering out and gathering that information a little bit easier. But once again, one stop for everybody tends to make a lot of people happier, but just something to consider that you could actually build off of. And we can come back and I can show you setting up this system with the behavior side in mind. Now, when I go to preview this, you'll kind of see what this looks like on their side. I select my teacher, I select the task, I write up a description, I give it a location, I do the date, the time, I then select my grade, I jump and I select the student. It is quite a few clicks. Even as simple as this takes time, especially if I'm putting an incident that got involved for kiddos. Now I'm going to have to go through and do the same process for each of them. That's why I'm saying try to keep this as condensed as I can. I wouldn't put more than what I have on here for a staff member. Like I said, it sounds really simple, but when the teacher feels overwhelmed and they're frustrated and you add this on top of it and it's a long form, they're just not going to do it. That's the reality of it. They're going to find it's easier just if I handle it myself, kind of thing. The point of this is to get the data from this so we can improve and do more preventative measures. But if they're not doing it, that's an issue. So really consider that as you're building these things to how can I keep this as simple and direct as possible. And it might be I will eliminate the date and I just have the time on there and not worry so much that it occurred this. You can set up systems in here that groups your like first quarter, your second quarter, your first semester, second semester based on dates, or you could add that extra little question on here. These drop downs are real quick to fill out. Like I said, your issue is if they're having to turn around, they write up a long description, then honestly, for some reason, it just feels frustrating to put in the date and time. It's not as big of a deal. Like I said, you're going to have the timestamp most of the time, but I do think that is still an important one to have in there. But you can kind of play around with this. I would always start with doing a small sample group, let your teachers get a feel of it, just let them toy around, put in fake data, and find out how they feel. How long did it take to actually put it in? Do they feel like it was frustrating to have to do this? So something to consider. Now, I'm going to continue on to the next stage of this, and this is actually looking at the data itself from a Google Sheet. So we'll actually look at it from the sheet side of it. I won't go in heavily on it just yet, but we'll talk about how I can actually sort additional data out here if I really wanted to, some additional things, but I can continuously add more and more tabs on here to kind of help some things out. So once again, I don't have to get into all that. I'll show you the basics first, then we'll come back and we'll add in more nuances and more additional pieces. So thank you again, guys, for tuning in, and hopefully you can find some use out of this, and stay tuned for the next piece of this. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for watching this video. Please click the like button and subscribe so you can stay up to date on any future videos.